Good afternoon. Good Thursday afternoon. This is Danielle DiMartino Booth with Quill Intelligence. I am proud to be joined this afternoon by Ben Hunt of Epsilon Theory, but that's the last words that you're going to hear out of our mouths about who we are and what our day jobs are, because something much more important has brought us together this afternoon to be with you. Ben, welcome. It's so great to have you.
Thank you, Danielle. Wonderful to be here, and thanks to you and thanks to Real Vision for supporting what we're doing here.
Absolutely. Let's jump right in. We've been tweeting about this. Our finest hour. Ben, what is our finest hour? Because right now it feels kind of dark out there. We just had the highest number of deaths in New York thus far. So what is our finest hour?
It does feel dark, Danielle, and I think, though, that what we are engaged in for the first time in a long time is a war here on the home front, here in our backyards, here in our neighborhoods, our cities, our states, and our nation. And I like this slogan, "Our finest hour." Obviously, it comes from World War II, from Winston Churchill, when he was describing the home front effort there. In the UK during World War II, the early days of World War II. And it really struck me because I do think, this is also a Churchill quote, that war is a series of blunders, right? and Lord knows that's the way it is with the United States for sure, right? We're very slow to act. We make a lot of mistakes. But ultimately, I believe this from the bottom of my heart, there's no nation, no group of citizens who mobilizes for a war effort as effectively with a bottom-up approach better than the United States. So despite all the slow starts, all the blunders, all the mistakes we're making and will continue to make, right? I truly believe that when we look back at this in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 50 years, we will look back and say, this was our finest hour.
So tell me, I read a little bit of the history here. I understand that there are people out on the West Coast involved with intel, that there are very good people also with intel on the ground in China who are helping with procurement. What on earth inspired you? Did you wake up in the middle of the night and say, "What? I've got to get some masks and I've got to get them now"? What put you on this path to making this actually happen? Not just looking at the news and saying this is really bad, but setting up an organization of this complexity just like that. What made you do this, Ben?
Well, I tell you, Danielle, we all have our different ways of approaching the crisis, the war that we're fighting today. For me, it really started when I was doing some research on the data, the information that was coming out of China in, let's call it late January, out of Wuhan, the city of Wuhan in particular, and the province of Hubei more generally. And what really struck me at the time was that the response to this virus, the war that was being fought, the front lines for this were not a battlefield as we usually think about it. The front lines were the hospitals of Wuhan. And what you saw were the doctors, the nurses, the staff of these hospitals getting sick themselves. And so that the hospitals were no longer a place of healing, but were actually a place of infection. And the ramifications of that led to what I think was the great loss of life that was suffered in the city of Wuhan. We've seen the same thing in Italy as well, that when your healthcare system itself is overwhelmed. I saw today that now over 100 Italian doctors have died from COVID-19 infection.
And you've seen that famous picture of the nurse who's just, her head's on a table and she's just distraught.
And Danielle, those same stories, fortunately so far without the loss of as much life, But those same stories of desperation, of being overwhelmed, are happening here in the United States. It's not, and it's not just a Kirkland, Washington thing, right? It's not just a New York City thing. It's a New Orleans, Louisiana thing. It's a Birmingham, Alabama thing, my hometown, my old hometown. It's Atlanta, Georgia. It's all over the country. It's all over the world. So our frontline heroes, and they are heroes. Let's make no mistake about that. And they're risking not only their own lives, but I'll tell you, this is something that I hear so often, and I don't know that people can really grasp this because it's so momentous. What they're really scared of, these heroes fighting for us on the front lines, is not just themselves getting sick, right, with a disease that literally turns your lungs into ground glass. What they're really scared about is bringing it home to their own families. So I think I hate to use these words or these terms, but I really think this is true. It is our moral imperative to support the people who are fighting this war for us. That's what the motivation here is. And I'll describe the project in a bit more detail if I can, because
please.
What we're really trying to do is a grassroots effort. This is a bottom-up effort to do what we can for our frontline heroes, right? We can't do anything about ventilators, right? We can't get involved in, serological testing or the test kits and the like. But you know what we can do? We can get basic personal protective equipment, PPE, armor, if you will, to our frontline heroes, right? That's what we're about right now. So what I want to do, I'm sorry, I'm getting this phone call here. That's the dilemma of live, right? Yeah.
That's okay, Ben.
Right? Yeah. So what we're trying to do, right, is we're trying to do this grassroots effort where we are not competing with the massive efforts of buying PPE at the federal and the state level, right? We are not out there trying to buy 1 million masks, right, from some supplier.
Sure.
But I tell you what we're also not doing, Danielle. We're also not waiting. We're not going to wait on the federal government or the state management authorities to buy these massive numbers of masks. That's what we're particularly focused on, these N95 masks, and then trickle them down to the front lines of people, emergency responders, doctors, nurses, who are, actually there on the, fighting this war for us.
EMT techs.
Absolutely. So it's EMTs, it's the fire departments, right? It's any emergency or first responder, it's any healthcare worker, right? At the clinic level, at the individual fire department level, right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to be that last mile of distribution where we acquire, and I'll talk about how we do it, we acquire quantities of these N95 masks. That's our first focus. There'll be other, I'll say, supplies of PPE that we also want to try to get in the hands of these first responders. But we're starting with masks because I think that's where the need is most pronounced, right? We are acquiring them, we're paying for them, but then crucially what we're also doing is we are distributing them. We are sending them directly to the ER department that needs some. Directly to the RN at a hospital who can take these to her team, right?
And in the event we can't put it up on the
we're not able to give.
Yeah, but just to clarify here, in the event we can't get it up on the screen, there's a very simple form that can be filled out. I mean, very simple.
Absolutely. So what we are doing in our outreach, and this is why I'm so grateful for Real Vision for getting this message out there, it's not only to help raise money for this effort, the 501c3 that we've established to raise money for this effort and to buy and distribute the equipment. But we also have a website up, and we've had over 600 healthcare professionals, first responders, get to us, tell us who they are and how to get masks to them. So we have that form available as well, and I'll absolutely, I'll give you the information now so people can start putting this in.
Sure.
If you are that healthcare worker or first responder, or someone who is, this is how you can get that information to us, and we will do what we can. We're not able to get, like I say, 5,000 masks to a hospital, but what we can absolutely do is get 50, 100, 200 masks to the people, the departments, the clinics that need it right now, that have that urgent need. That's what we're trying to do.
So Ben, how on earth are you making this happen? I mean, we're talking about halfway around the world and in a whole different time zone, and in some ways with a country that some Americans view as being the enemy. How do you know these are good masks? I mean, there are a lot of questions that arise.
Yeah, there are a couple of good questions in there, Danielle. Let me save that question of I'll call it quality control for a second, because that's absolutely a crucial issue, and I want to spend some time talking about it. Mm-hmm. But let me describe the overall system that we've got here, right? Because what we really are trying to do is to provide this grassroots, bottom-up, end-to-end solution, where we like to describe it as almost like an underground railroad of PPE. And I really have to hand it to some of our colleagues at Intel, who had this idea, frankly, of working with some of their colleagues. They're all doing this on their own time, out of their own pocket, right? This is not an official Intel thing for corporate purposes. These are just real people who are trying to make a difference, right? And they had this idea. Exactly. That's why, like I say, we call it this underground railroad, where the Intel China employees, again, doing this on their own time, right, their own money, are buying small quantities of masks because the equipment is plentiful. It is relatively cheap over there. And again, I'll describe what's going on with the whole market around these in a moment. Buying small quantities, mailing it to us over here in Connecticut. We've got a setup here where we then take it, we repackage it, we reship it, and we get it directly into the hands of those healthcare workers and first responders who've told us, I've got an urgent need. And we're getting these requests from all over the country, like I say, all over the country. So, we've got a steady stream now of 1,000, sometimes, up to 1,500 or 2,000 masks that we're able to bring in every day, and then turn around and get those right back out the door. Typically have a same day or maybe a 24-hour turnaround on getting these masks out there where they can actually make a real difference. Right. So to date, like I say, we've distributed, let's call it 25,000 masks or so. Right. And more importantly, we've got this steady stream of masks. We've got so much need out there that we really do think we've got a good system in place now to get the masks in and then get them where they need to go.
And so let's go back to quality for just a minute.
Sure. Well, look, it is the Wild West now with the the acquisition of these masks, and it's been a crash course for me and our team in learning about the different certifications, the different testing standards, everything that goes into. These aren't surgical masks. These aren't the those rectangular light blue masks. They're just basically like a couple of sheets of paper, right? That you see, and those can be manufactured in quantities of, just massive quantities, right? Sure. But they're often called respirators. They are a specialty textile that is tested and accredited for blocking a certain proportion of particulates, right, down to a certain size of matter, right? They have different protections in terms of what they call droplets, yep. Right? The different certifications and different standards. The most common of these masks is called the N95 mask, and different regions call that N95 mask different things, but they all meet the same standards. So in Europe, it's typically called an FFP2 mask. In China, it's called a KN95 mask. So we know what the standards are for what's really expected in a medical facility here in the United States. That's not so much the issue. The issue really is in verifying, right, that the testing procedures and the documents that we receive are legit, right? And there's no foolproof way to do this because we can't test every mask that we receive over here. But we do try to test the masks, right? If we get a bulk shipment, we're working with 2 local medical centers here in Connecticut. We give them 500 masks and say, hey, test a dozen of these,
Sure.
right? And keep the rest, right, if they're good. And so far, and I'll knock on wood here, but so far we've had good results from the local testing that we do, that these masks are up to snuff. Also, and this is crucially important, we have people on the ground in China with our Intel China partners here. Also, some other firms that have really stepped up to the plate to help us to do whatever they can to do the due diligence and the quality control of the different factories, the manufacturers who are making these masks. So there's no guarantee we can give because, like everyone else out there, we're seeing these fake FDA certificates from a fly-by-night place, right? It truly is the Wild West out there in terms of pricing and availability. Some stories I can tell you are just crazy, right? But we're doing all that we can to spot test, to verify and do the due diligence on the sourcing of these masks. It's a really important question. It is something that we take very seriously here.
So at the risk of bringing up another one of your famous hashtags, how do you feel about the story that's been circulating these past 2 days about a healthcare worker who brought PPE into work and was dismissed, was fired?
Yeah.
I mean,
as you can imagine, I have very strong feelings about this, Danielle. I will say that our response, our interaction with, again, the people on the front lines, the doctors, the nurses, the department heads, the clinic workers, the EMT chiefs, right, the fire department chiefs, our interaction with them has been, without exception, positive doesn't do it justice. Their bravery and their dedication to what they do and their need for this equipment it's emotionally overwhelming at times, to be honest. At the same token, this is by no means uniform. You've got a lot of great people working in hospital administration. I've run into a couple of stories, though, examples of a CYA attitude that still exists at, I'll call it some of these the higher administrative levels. Because for all the concerns, legitimate concerns about the quality of the masks that we source and that we're able to distribute, and we certainly make, like I say, every effort to work on that. What's the quality control of a disposable mask that you've been using for a week? What's that quality control?
Exactly.
What's the quality control of using a surgical mask, right? Which is, nice paper, but paper, right? As opposed to a textile that will give you some protection, right? Against the droplets, the particulates that are just so pervasive when you're actually on the front lines working with this disease. So it makes me angry. Frankly, it makes me angry.
I know it does. I know it does, Ben. It makes all of us angry, and it's atrocious to read about, and it's atrocious to see. Remind us, what's the website if people want to donate, please?
Well, so I want to the website is frontlineheroesusa.org. All one word, frontlineheroesusa.org.
So talk to me about
on that site, that's the front site for a donation facility, which I'll describe, and I've got some I think some good news around that that I want to get out to the Real Vision listeners. What you'll also see there is a link to an Epsilon Theory site, where is I'll call it the intake form for healthcare workers, emergency responders, first responders, or if you know someone who is. It's an online form to give us contact information and a shipping address. Yes, we will ship to home addresses, right, to avoid exactly that scenario that you were just describing about the healthcare worker who brought in some equipment, and said, no, you can't use that here. We're going to make you reuse that mask again that you've been using for the past 3 days, right? We'll absolutely send it to your home, but we will check and verify the hospital, the clinic that you're associated with, right? So we'll do that vetting as well. But that's the site, right? FrontlineHeroesUSA.org. On the donation facility, Danielle, to date, we've raised, we've been up for, I'll say maybe a week and a half, close to 2 weeks. To date, we've raised over $600,000 on this, thanks to the generosity of individuals like Real Vision listeners. I will also say that I just heard, this was the phone call that came in earlier, right? That while we were broadcasting, there's a very generous donor who's willing to match up to $20,000 in donations from Real Vision listeners and viewers. So there's an opportunity on the donation site to put a little note. So if you put a little note there, they were listening to you, Danielle, or their Real Vision subscriber, we will match, this donor will match up to $20,000 of donations. Yeah, that's great. I want to be really clear also about something else. 100% of all funds donated, every penny of every dollar, goes to buying and distributing PPE for our frontline heroes, right? That also includes, there's another generous donor who said, look, I'll even pick up the credit card charges. The payment processors tack on their own fees, right, for when you give money on these sites, right?
That's
so we've got a donor said,
right, Ben. But I pay for my fees. But look, somebody's generous enough to come out and pay for those fees. That's amazing.
Yeah, this is what really gives me personally so much hope about this war that we're fighting, right? That it's not just the dedication and the heroism of the people on the front lines, the healthcare workers and the first responders, but it's also the incredible wellspring of support and both financial and otherwise that we are seeing again at this grassroots level from all over the country and frankly all over the world. It's humbling, it's gratifying, and ultimately this is how we'll have our finest hour.
So there's a question coming in, and none of us really can answer the question, but based on the projections from abroad, Ben, do you have any feel at all for how long we can be expected to be in lockdown? I follow a website pretty closely that shows mobility around the country. You mentioned Atlanta, Georgia, where you're from, and a few days ago, mobility there was not what I would have wanted for it to have been. There were more people moving around in certain parts of the Deep South, especially. That was worrisome. Do you have any feel for how long you think this might last?
Frankly, Danielle, my strong view is that we're going to be living with this disease, frankly, for forever, right? These
forever,
forever living with the disease, right? And forever having the whether it's this disease or the next one, right? Because there will always be a next one, right? The need to support now our frontline heroes, this is really consuming to me. I don't know how long it's going to go on. Mm-hmm. I don't. What I do know is that the need is here now. I think in so many cities and areas of this country, we are still very much on the upswing of this. I think it's entirely possible, and you've heard this from Dr. Fauci and others, that there will be a second wave of this in the fall. I don't know. And for me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
That's really the point. So, Ben, I want to put a smile on your face.
Great.
Tell me about some of your favorite stories. Share with us. I've seen some amazing pictures on your Twitter feed of people holding these care packages and sending these photographs to you. Tell us. Give us a few anecdotes.
Well, I can give you anecdotes primarily from, I'll call it the recipients, because that's what this is all about. I can give you lots of crazy stories on the sourcing and prices going up by 10% in a day, and you've bought them and then they take them back, and I can give you lots of stories around that. But those stories are nothing, frankly, right? Because what we are risking, we being the organizers of this effort, we're risking effectively nothing, right? We're risking our time and our money. Big freaking deal. Big freaking deal. I can't express well enough with anecdotes or anything else, except some really bad anecdotes, about the degree to which these healthcare workers and first responders, man, they're risking their lives. And like I say, for them, and I get so many stories like this, it's not just their own lives that they are worried about and so concerned about. It's bringing this disease home to their families. And so to be able to support them, to give them armor in fighting this need, I can't tell you what an uplifting experience is for me and everyone involved in this project. What I will describe to you, and it is, I can show you, or put up videos. The tears. These are tears of gratitude that we get when we're able to deliver this, and they say so profusely, "Thank you, thank you, thank you," and that actually, it doesn't put a smile on my face. It makes, again, me a little angry. They're thanking me. They're thanking us for giving this. When, oh my God, thank you. Thank you. I so many of us, we've my life here in this country. I was born in 1964, and my life has been one of growing up in my view, this country I'm so proud of, and enjoying, and that's the word, enjoying a lifestyle that is wonderful, and to see these people, again, putting their lives and their families' lives at risk and dealing with that weight every day, when the big decision I've got to make is, what artisanal mezcal am I going to serve tonight, right? Right?
Yeah.
The gulf between what these heroes are doing, and again, it's not just in this country, it's all over the world. I wish we could provide help to the world. Right now, we can't export medical supplies anywhere outside the United States, and that's okay. But to our listeners, I know Real Vision has got a lot of listeners and viewers outside of the United States. Delighted to share information and how we've put this together. If anyone else wants to try to do the same thing, this is something. This effort at support is something that anyone can do. We can all do it in our own way. It doesn't have to be through our effort of Frontline Heroes. Everyone can make a contribution, and everyone should, because this is the price we pay for others to fight this war for us on the front lines.
Ben, how little counts? Talk to me about 40 whole dollars.
Look, a single mask makes a difference for people, right? And so the all-in cost, let's say, from acquisition to shipping it over here and getting it out, maybe it's $4 or $5 for a mask, for one of these N95 equivalent masks. And so, $40, that can get 8 to 10 masks in the hands of the person who needs it the most. Typically we try to send out, at a minimum of 50 masks, 100, 200, for where the need is really urgent, because what people then do is they share it with their team, right? They share it with their other team members who are in the foxhole there with them.
Right.
So look, a donation of $20 makes a difference. A donation of $40, $50 makes an enormous difference. And that's, again, what's been so gratifying and what gives me so much confidence that this will be our finest hour. We're not only seeing some really large, generous donations. We had a donation of $100,000 yesterday.
Yesterday, I saw that.
It's very generous from someone who's in our business of investing money, right? But what gives me as much confidence are the hundreds of donations for much smaller amounts, right? This really is a grassroots effort. This really is something that has real staying power and makes an enormous difference on the front lines.
Ben, just one last thing. Tell us how far the grass grows. Tell us some of the different places throughout America that you've sent these masks. Again, you say it's not just New York City. I think we need to emphasize that.
Well, we did focus on New York City, New York in general, New Jersey, and Fairfield County, Connecticut, with our initial. So we do allocate on the basis of need. I think that's a really important thing to mention here. It's not a first come, first serve thing. So we get FEMA reports. We try to identify the cities, the towns, the hospital systems that are in the most need and allocate there first. But we also take in the comments that the requesters are making of us, right? Because this is the thing that doesn't register. It doesn't bubble up to these million mask orders that go to a state. They don't hear from, a clinic in Cleveland, right, that desperately needs some masks, that is seeing these patients all the time. But we don't see a hospital in in Alabama, right? You don't see a hospital or a clinic in Lafayette, Louisiana. We get those responses. Right, we get those requests, and we get them some help. We get them some help immediately. So it literally is in, every major city. Like I say, we've gotten over 600. They are from the areas where you'd expect. Right, it's Louisiana, it's Illinois, it's California, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Georgia, Florida. Indiana. It's places you don't expect either. A clinic in Maine, right? 2 clinics in Maine who've got a real issue here, and we were able to get them some help.
Good.
It's nationwide. It really is in your backyard, and we can help. So let us know. Again, it's frontlineheroesusa.org. There's a link there to Epsilon Theory site where we've got the intake form for people who need assistance. And frontlineheroesusa.org is also where so many people are making these amazingly generous donations.
Ben, I want to thank you so much. I'm going to let you get back to fighting on the front lines for everyone's behalf. This is Danielle DiMartino Booth, again, joined here today by Ben Hunt. We want to give our hearts out to Real Vision for giving us this platform so that we can help further the cause. Thank you so much to everybody. Take care. Everybody be safe.
Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you.